watches. So there are people that are not going to want to wear, large watches or jewelry. The advantage of the wearable is that it's even more with you than your phone. It was quite depressing last week. I was working from home to realize that I only did 55 steps during the whole day. And that's because I was actually using the Nike application on my phone. And what I realized is that when I move around in the home, I don't take my phone with me because it's within reach. So I don't need to have it on me or in my pocket as I walk around and I go make coffee and lunch and so forth. So the ability to do that on something that is with you at all times is obviously very, very useful. But I think that for wearables to really be successful, the smartphone needs to kind of decouple from the smartphone. The two things need to be separate to some extent. Because if you look at, for instance, things like Galaxy Gear today, the price point is still fairly high for the limited smartness that these devices have.
Martin, where do you see this sort of developing? What sort of trajectory do you see for these devices?
I'm going to talk creepy for a moment.
Oh.
Okay. So we're going to have little motion sensors in these devices. They're very, very sophisticated. They're sensitive, they're accurate. They're measuring every step you take. They're also measuring every time you turn, every time you go up. Every movement you move is measured and captured. What this means is the device has a trail of breadcrumbs about where you've been, about where you've stopped, even where you sat down, where you congregated. Now, it doesn't know exactly where those breadcrumbs start because we know GPS isn't that accurate, but it can take an average. And what's going to happen? Companies like Google and Apple, and perhaps even the carriers, are going to be able to map everywhere everybody goes. So if you were to look at this physical space, the conference center, you would see trails where people walk, where they sit, where they pause, where they stop. Those trails will map out every business, every store, every public place will have a digital map of how people move through it. Most intriguing, your house will be mapped. Where you spend your time on the sofa, perhaps in the bedroom. All this stuff is going to be captured by these devices and reported. Now, is this private information? Not really, because they don't care who captures it. They don't care where the information in this building or even in your house is coming from. Any guest can walk in with a trackable device and let companies like Google build this three-dimensional map of the world. Is it a bad thing? If there's a fire or an emergency, it's fantastic. It's wonderful. It really helps the emergency services figure out where people might be, the best escape routes. Is it creepy? Oh yeah. Anybody not think that's creepy, that you could go and see a map of where you sit in your house? You see the rooms, you can see the doorways. That's what's coming.
It's a bit like when people foursquare other people's houses, isn't it?
Yes.
Which a lot of people find slightly offensive.
Give a rating.
Sorry.
Give it a rating.
Indeed. Yes, that's yes, the video is terrible. The creepy line is an interesting one because Eric Schmidt has sort of alluded to this a couple of times, hasn't he, about the creepy line, crossing the creepy line, and the difficulty of knowing when you've gone past it or at what point you should be holding back from it. How do you think we can see when companies are approaching that place, or even when they've gone over it? When do we know that they've gone past it?
Let me talk about this in the context of, again, building business models that use this information. And what's interesting is it's not that there's perfectly fine at one end and completely unacceptable and somewhere there's creepy. It's a circle. It's very easy to go from doing something that was perfectly fine to all of a sudden